everybody. Thank you for attending. I'm going to be presenting a piece that I made this summer under lockdown called Protection Song. And it's in a category all its own, although I think it really intersects with the things that a lot of people are doing these days, in that it has some elements of ritual and of storytelling and of looking at our whole system and thinking about healing and what we can do to get to know our bodies and the connection, the body-mind connection, a little bit better. I actually made it kind of like a video game in a game engine, thinking that would help it be more accessible to people that normally would not do something like a yoga class or meditation. And it probably, hopefully still will accomplish that. But I think it's great that this festival is happening, because this is exactly like the sweet spot of where this work sits. It's both in the game space and on a computer, but it's also about healing and wellness, although I hate that word. So hopefully you'll see a lot of cross-pollination with other stuff that has been happening at the festival. And this is the second time I presented it, and so if you have any feedback about it, I would love to hear your thoughts about basically anything in the either in my verbal presentation or in the actual software itself. So just to give you a little bit of introduction to it, it's a Twine experience, and this one's fully text. And my thought was to make it as accessible as possible. Right now, the screen-based version is primarily text, and my delivery here in the festival is going to be going through essentially what is on the screen. And for those who would prefer to listen to the story, I would suggest not looking at the screen, not seeing the Twine game, because it might make it kind of confusing to simultaneously be looking at what's on the screen and hearing me say basically the same thing, but one or the other should be fine in any case. So this is also interactive, although obviously mostly I'll be guiding you through things. There isn't anything that you have to tell me. You can do things all on your own in the privacy of your home. And I designed it around that situation, since that's what we're in. And also because I know that some people who haven't done something like a meditation session or chanting or something like that might feel a little awkward with that. And I wanted to give a way for people to experience it on their own and to feel comfortable with that. So hopefully you're in a place where you are not going to have to be shy, but if so, just come back to it later. It's all up to you what you do or do not want to participate in. So Protection Song is a way that we'll explore our nervous system, mainly the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system parts. They're the part of the nervous system that allow creatures of all kinds to respond to danger in their environment or perceived danger, and also to build safety and trust. So just as a way to kind of ease everyone into what's going to happen, I created a zine, and I have two zine pages. One is the pre-care and one is aftercare. So I'll read out the URL. So if you want to go to the pre-care zine on your own, you can. I'm going to also visit it. The URL is moboid.com, which is moboid.com/protection song, all one word, all lowercase, /precare.html. So I'm switching tabs. Wow, this is a pretty cool Google tool to make the tabs show on the screen. Okay, so here's the pre-care zine, and it kind of goes over some of the things I just said. But one thing that's important to know that I would like everyone to do is, if you can right now while I'm talking, I'll go on a little bit to give you time. Please go get a glass of water, or maybe you have a glass of something already there by your computer, and maybe a small snack, like a handful of nuts or some crackers or something like that. We will be using those in the interactive process. So it's a narrative experience, and one thing to be aware of is that there are some elements that are kind of a little bit scary that involve physical danger experienced by animals. So if that is something you don't want to witness, or if you have kids that might be scared, nothing happens bad in the end, but there is some scary moments. And like I said before, you'll be following some simple physical instructions. And nothing is mandatory, of course. Like, however you want to follow the instructions is up to you, including just thinking about them. But I encourage you to do as much as you can and as you feel comfortable doing. Okay, and I did cover all these other things, and there's some really nice illustrations. You'll see the thematic of it is in the prehistoric era, and I had a really good time this summer researching dinosaurs and things. So just wanted to share some of those to give people a kind of context for what the world we're going to be in. All right, getting back to the game. There's also woven throughout, there are some, I would say, medical or biological bits of information. I think during the verbal version of this, I'm going to not go too deep into that until afterward. It made, the first time I ran this, it kind of broke up the flow a little bit. So I will try to explain things that when they make sense, but I'm probably not going to get into too much detail about the actual the nervous system biological stuff. But afterwards, there will be a lot of resources that I can share, or I can definitely do Q&A about that. Okay, yeah, so I'm going through, there's going to be some instructions, and if you're shy, do whatever you feel like doing. It's all good. And there's no graphics, so either listen or read. And there's going to be some real world instructions. And hopefully by now I gave you enough time that you went and followed these instructions already, which is you got your glass of water and your little snack. Okay, so we're all set. It is the early Cretaceous era on the supercontinent Laurasia. You are a small mouse-like creature living on a landmass which will someday be known as Zhangzhou. Your home is a hollow at the base of a dying pine tree, where you sleep and hide from fast-running raptors during the day and emerge at night to search for your food. It's dusk now, and you awaken and stretch. So, players, which is how I will refer to you all who are watching right now, there'll be a few times where I'm instructing you to do things, and now's one of those. Players, I'd like you to roll both of your shoulders in big circles backwards a few times. And then maybe switch and go forward. Maybe you're getting some crunching like I am right now. Now lift your shoulders up to your ears really tight, 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 and then let them go and let them drop. Let gravity completely take over the weight of your arms. You can do it again if you want. Like scrunch, 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 and then just let go. And now I want you to touch your chin to your chest and be very gentle, and then roll your head around in a circle, left or right, as you choose. And then switch and go the opposite way. Sometimes in the autumn, my bones really start to get creaky, so just be careful and don't hurt yourself. Great. So it's early dusk in the Cretaceous period. And the voracious raptors, these dinosaurs that run around on two legs, are on their last hunts of the day. Soon they'll curl up to sleep, but for now they stalk on their powerful legs and they seek out a meal to sustain them through the night. You, mammal, you woke up hungry, but it's still too light outside to be safe. Fortunately, you have a few seeds remaining from yesterday's scavenging. So I'd like you to take your snack. I have some almonds, and just eat them slowly, like one bite at a time. And even you can just use both hands and really feel like a small creature this way. We can imagine being inside the hollowed out tree trunk. So biologically, the digestive system is connected to the vagus nerve. And so in situations of stress, it can stop digestion, or you can even like quickly void out your digestive system if you're under really life-threatening danger. So as you're chewing and swallowing, you sense the food passing down your esophagus and into your stomach, and you begin to feel thirsty. So the food is energizing your body, and now you're finally ready to leave your tree and move quickly because you're thirsty in your search for water. So you emerge from your nest just as the sun is hitting the edge of the horizon, and you breathe in the heavy, moist air outside. So players, I would like you to place a hand on your lower belly, and then completely, like, you maybe even push a little with your hand and like empty your lungs out of air completely. And then when you've completely emptied it, maybe pause there for a second, for as long as you can. And then take a deep breath. Just let your stomach relax and let your body fill with air, and push all of that air downward. And then maybe let's repeat it. And when you fill that air in your lungs, just hold it there for a few seconds. So push it out and then let it fill. Ooh, lots of oxygen. And if I hold it even at the top with all the air, I can sort of feel a stretch in my belly area and like in parts of my like musculature. Because when you fill with air, like your diaphragm, which is right below your lungs, is expanding downward to like pull air into your lungs. And the diaphragm is also connected to the vagus nerve. So you're moving in the direction now of a small stream that usually fills with water after every heavy rain shower. But the problem is that the last time it actually rained was 5 moons ago. In the heat of the evening, the high-pitched sounds of insects fill the air all around you, and you start to look forward to catching some large, juicy bugs to eat soon, maybe a cicada. Approaching the banks of the stream, you see only dry mud. Crawling further down the stream bed, you reach a place where the mud is less crusted, more muddy, and you can smell the greenness of moisture. And still this noise of many thousands of insects is blocking out all of their sound around you. So with your claws, you scrabble and you get out as much of the caked dirt on the surface to reach down to where you can find fresh water below the surface. So players, now's a good chance to drink from your water. That seed might have made you a bit thirsty. It did to me. And you can always have some water later, of course. You crouch down to lap water from the puddle that you've revealed. Relief fills your body as the last rays of the sun reflect on its glassy surface. But suddenly, the reflection goes dark, and you hear the snapping of razor-sharp teeth. A spiked reptilian horror is looming overhead. Your stomach lurches in fear, and you feel like you're glued on the spot. So players, I want you to imagine being the prey animal here and how scared you would be being a tiny creature the size of a mouse and facing a vastly larger and more powerful dinosaur predator. What would you do? I think given the circumstances, like most mammals, you'd play dead. You would stay very still and not move, maybe hoping that the dino wouldn't see you. So like hold your breath a little bit and don't even move your eyes. Just kind of relax and stare into the middle distance. Yeah, this response, this freeze response, something like in America, we have a creature called the opossum that is known for doing this. You think it's dead, but it's actually just like completely frozen, protecting itself. And that response is controlled by this part of the vagus nerve, the one I've been mentioning. There's two parts to it. One is in the front and one in the back. And the one in the back is called dorsal. And this freeze response is something involuntary. It causes our bodies to shut down when we sense, whether we know it or just feel that it would be impossible to fight back or escape a dangerous situation. So many times this happens to humans and we blame ourselves afterwards, but it's actually a completely natural biological response that we don't have any control over. And you can see that with maybe if you have a pet and it catches a small rodent or something and it just kind of lies limply. It's a protective measure to either keep it safe and escape any notice, or at very least reduce the amount of pain that it would experience. So back in the Cretaceous, suddenly from the branches of some nearby pine trees come loud, high-pitched screeching sounds. The dinosaur looks up suddenly, distracted by these noises, and it's your chance to flee. A burst of adrenaline sends you darting to the far side of the creek bed. When you're running, the dinosaur's head just whips around on her long neck to follow your motion, and she begins running after you in pursuit. She's so close, you can feel her hot breath on the fur of your back, and her guttural screech is shaking your bones. Her quills are crackling menacingly against each other. So, players, I want you to think of how you'd be here. Like, take a deep in-breath and basically start panting, like a gasp or a pant. Like, and then shallow breaths. This is a reaction of the sympathetic nervous system. It allows us to respond quickly to something danger like this, where we do have a chance of escape, and rapidly oxygenating the blood to allow us to flee or to fight back. So as you're running, your eyes stay on the muddy ground ahead, and high-pitched squeals are coming from the tree, and they're guiding you toward it. Chunks of dry mud are flying out from behind your tiny feet. Finally, you reach the base of the thick tree and you scramble over the roots. You're trying desperately to get a hold onto the trunk of this tree. Overhead, you can hear encouraging cries because your fellow mammals are up there and you're getting closer, but you're not safe yet, and your heart is pounding with effort of pulling your body further up the tree to get to safety. So players, I want you to take your pulse. Basically, you can do that on your neck or on your wrist. You may already have a technique you do that for feeling the artery. And if you pant for a few seconds, like it takes a while, but you can feel your heartbeat start to pick up. The vagus nerve is sending messages that tell your heart when to go faster or slower. And there's some measurements of the health of this nerve that have to do with how fluidly your heart rate is able to change based on the breathing in and out, not necessarily during a stressful situation, but even just in any normal resting state. When you breathe in, when you breathe out, it's a little bit different. And scientists measure that difference to tell whether your nerves are sort of firing properly. Back in the Cretaceous, the frustrated scream of the dinosaur is piercing your ears, but finally you reach the lowest horizontal branch on the tree, and it's just high enough above the ground that the dino can't jump up this far. I mean, you're a tiny mouse. She's only about 1 meter tall, so it doesn't have to be too high, but it was high enough. So now you're safe in this pine tree, and you watch as the dinosaur below loses interest, and finally she stalks away. Around you, the restless chittering of these other furry creatures gradually calms down and quiets as the immediate danger has passed. So now, take a deep and slow breath, and if you really want to slow it down, one good way to do that is like pretend like you're drinking through a straw, like so. As you do that, you may feel your pulse somewhat decelerate as you're gradually filling and emptying your lungs. Finally, when the dinosaur seems finally out of earshot, one of the other animals in the tree approaches you and tentatively sniffs at your fur and wonders who you are. Some of the older mammals that are in this group begin crooning and welcoming you with a song, and the instinct wells up inside you as a fellow mammal, and you answer back in a song that expresses your relief from this great fear you had and your sense of belonging with these other creatures. So if you're comfortable, I would like you to make some sounds with your voice. I really wish I could hear everybody. That's not happening though. Nobody can hear you. So you can sing or hum, which I think is what I'll do. You can chant if you have that practice. Or one thing you can even do if none of those are very comfortable for you is gargle some of the water. That all of these things are ways to stimulate the vagus nerve since it goes through our voice box and helps tone it so that it's better, more easily responsive to different kinds of situations. So, well, first I need to drink a little water. And I'm just going to do some humming for a half a minute or so, and you feel free to join me. Actually kind of makes you think of how lullabies are a way of parents and children to communicate and stimulate their nervous systems together. So as you begin to vocalize, many more of the tiny mammals peek around from their branches of the tree and come out from their nests to peer at you. All these mammals cuddle and murmur, and you listen to them and they're listening to you. And eventually your pulse returns down to normal and you let out a tiny sigh. Now this is a little bit of an unusual one. I'd like you to massage your outer ears a little bit with your fingertips. You can maybe squeeze them, your earlobes a little bit. And you can bend your ears forward. That sometimes feels nice, the cartilage, or down, folding it down a little bit. And you can also take one fingertip and place it not in the ear canal because that's dangerous, but in the part that touches your head. Or if you have longer fingernails, you can just use the tip of your fingernail. And that's a place where the vagus nerve actually comes quite close to the surface of the body. Most of the time it's pretty deep inside, but here it sort of comes to the surface. So that's considered to be one possible way that the vagus nerve can be stimulated and toned. It also relates to how this part of the nervous system and our sensory system developed. Mammals have very specialized inner ear bones that in reptiles before were part of the jaw structure. And then over like millennia, those jaw bones moved and became the very tiny inner ear bones that help us say, hear a wider range of sound as mammals, and also especially for mammals like the ones we are talking about in the story, to be able to hunt in darkness and stay in contact with a group at a distance and find each other. It's really important for mammals to have these social systems, and being together is conferring safety, but it also, thanks to our neurological systems, makes us feel safe as well. So, night has fallen, and you and the other mammals are all safe. I want to thank you all for your participation with me in Protection Song. Also, you may have heard some participation from my cat a little bit earlier. Something that's really also very cool is how all of this relates to play. Humans and some other animals co-regulate our nervous systems with one another in face-to-face interaction, and that play is a really big part of that. It allows us to feel this kind of special combination of mobilizing energy that you get from your sympathetic nervous system that would normally be like fight or flight. But combined with, instead of being fearful, it's combined with positive feelings from the vagus nerve of this like social engagement and being, with other people. So play is really special in that it takes these two impulses are experienced separately, but with play they come together. I would like to offer you some recommendations and places you can go to either learn more or follow up on these experiences with other things like them. And that's with the Aftercare zine, which I've linked here. I'll show you that. So the URL for that is moboid.com/protectionsong/aftercare.html. So it talks a little bit more about what was the learning behind what we were doing. It gives you a link if you want to play again. And of course, my credits. I had a lot of experts and playtesters helping me. I was asking a lot of questions about dinosaurs down at the museum with scientists who study them, and had some really great help from friends who played the experience and gave me feedback. There's also a big diagram here of the vagus nerve. and all the many places that it connects to if you want to take a closer look. And some exercises in case you want to have more of like a chill out from having more of a stimulated experience, meditation or other kinds of things you can follow along. And some more stuff about the dinosaurs and mammals of that time, some really fun videos, and more stuff about the vagus nerve and the theories that were behind the things in the experience. And lastly, there's a lot of things I was looking at the time, taking this somatic understanding of the body and exploring how important it is in activism. Like with everything that's going on this year, it's really important to take care of ourselves and our nervous systems, both with COVID and with Black Lives Matter. There's a lot of stress in our world, and thinking about how we can take the time for ourselves is really important to come back to things that we want to do with energy and enthusiasm, and not be completely crushed by them as much as possible. So I hope that this experience or some of the others that I've pointed to here will help people do that if they would like to. So that is everything for Protection Song. And yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any more info if people would like. I think we have like almost 20 minutes or so.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, but speak very clearly.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I think a happy coincidence of our experience is that it is about dusk time here in Pittsburgh, and we can hear the cicadas outside the window. So that was like some very nice ambient sounds happening for us.
I'm really happy to hear that. Yeah, I think there was probably a lot of that going on when I was creating it. You know, I was sitting in my backyard a lot of the time, and one time my cat actually caught a cicada and brought it into the house. So yeah, I really like them. One of my threads of going down the rabbit hole was like I discovered there's entire realms of like cicada watching people that like map. There's all different kinds of cicadas that pop up in different places, and they like if you have a sighting of a certain kind, you can put it on the map, and people are kind of obsessed. I loved it.
That does sound really funny. Yeah, and the other part I really liked was eating my my nut with both my hands.
Yeah, it's fun how like, and that's part of what I think I might be getting darker too. I was probably a lot better lit at the beginning of the talk because yes, you know, we're Bonnie, you and I in the same time zone as far as I know, and yeah. But yeah, it's fun how asking someone to do something with their body can lead you to really feeling or, you know, play acting another entity, you know, and I found that one to be really, because every time you see one of these small creatures, they're doing that, like if it's a squirrel or whatever. So we as humans almost never do that. So it really kind of puts you in that mindset.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that it's like just such a different action from what you would normally do, that there's no way I associate doing this with being a person.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was like, yeah, very calming. And I was wondering about, I guess, what your somatic practice or whatever looks like in everyday life. Like, is it something you like do with other people, or I guess how did that? Well, yeah.
Yeah. There's not one certain thing I do. I do yoga and meditation and dance, different kinds of dance. For instance, Slow Danger, who are also presenting, they do workshops sometimes in movement, and I try to do those when I can. What else do I do? I would say, yeah, somatically, are there any other things? I've been reading more on, breathing exercises, and I tend to get interested in different practices that I hear about and at least try them out and see. And I would also say that singing, like, that's one story I didn't tell at the beginning, is like, why am I doing this at all? And what do I, what started this? And it was that I was trying to get better at singing, and I was realizing that I had this kind of stage fright that would cause my diaphragm to just lock up. And I was in a singing workshop, and the instructor gave a short presentation on the vagus nerve and how it was connected to the voice as well as to the heart and the lungs. And it made me realize that maybe there's something going on with me that's not just emotional. It's maybe a little bit like some kind of PTSD response, that when I get in front of people, maybe I'm just so scared from something that happened in the past and I don't know what it was. I might've been a kid, or who knows. So maybe I should try to work a little bit on just simply that nervous system, and not try to just think my way out of it, but try to actually have more of an embodied practice with that system. And so I started reading up on what is this vagus nerve and how do you help it and why is it important? And then after I was already doing that, that's when, COVID hit, and it's like, wait a second, it's a disease that is hitting your heart, your lungs, and people are having nervous system effects of it, and this is something that must, it can only help people to be even more aware of and at one with their vagus nerve, and to realize the things about trauma that are related to how the nerve is trying to protect us, how our system is trying to protect us by communicating through this system, and how we can therefore sort of learn to understand its messages. And so it just kind of put me down that path when I started out with the singing stuff. So I do consider singing to be, and music, other kinds of music, to be one of my other embodied practices. I'm going to turn on a light because it's getting super dark, but it might just get really bright.
I just wanted to mention that the experience kind of remind me of the kids audiobook for bedtime story that I used to listen to as a child. And usually there's some kind of there's a narrator telling the story, and then some kind of sound effect or voice acting. But then the protection zone is kind of that, plus a guided meditation, and plus a game. I was just wondering, have you ever thought about adding audio effects, sound effects, or a music track in the background to go with the text?
Good question. I did actually, because being a person who likes to make sound, it did occur to me that adding some kind of sound effects would help put people kind of in the era, in that space and time. Maybe some of those cicadas, and the water and things like that. And I still think that could be possible. I decided when I was doing these as a kind of presentation that it wouldn't quite need that I would just lean more on the storytelling capabilities, because it might just get overwhelmingly too much going on, and maybe it didn't need those. But for the experience that people might go through when they're just sitting at home, having the sounds might be better in that circumstance. And I was thinking about it. It's certainly possible to have, twine triggering some sounds, and it wouldn't have to be super complex, maybe just background sounds. Yeah, it's a debate in my mind about how far to take that, since you don't want it to get too gimmicky, or like, oh, there's a dino, rawr, you know, like how, like maybe it would be good, but yeah, it would take, let's say, as a person who's done a lot of game design, I could think about how cool it would be, and then I can sort of multiply the hours it would take to really get it done right to my satisfaction, both quality sound wise and just like design wise. I'm like, not yet. So maybe that is something I would work on in the future. Yeah.
Yes, and also it's kind of, it's alluding to a very specific season and kind of climate. It's basic, as you mentioned, and what Bonnie mentioned, it's kind of synchronized with how the weather is like in Pittsburgh right now. So it'd be interesting to see for someone who's like in very opposite like season, say on the southern hemisphere, or like, when somebody look at it in winter, how the experience is like.
Yeah. I never thought about the fact that it was really quite at dusk when my talk was. I now from now on, whenever I do the talk, I have to request that it always takes place at the at the time, but with everybody in a different place. I guess it has to just be at my desk. We'll see. I don't think that would get me too far, but that was a lucky break.
Well, so you answered my question about how this all started with the singing in a way that resonates with my story, and so it's beautiful. And then the other question was from Snow, which was like, could you imagine using this as a blueprint for a much more time-consuming, resource-consuming, elaborate, like, virtual reality immersion? Because I think I heard from Jared Lanier that our ability to read and write is a hack of that vagus nerve, of our audio, of our audio processing. That part of our brain that's used for speech or just making sound and processing sound is what we use for reading and writing. And I love how just reading can trigger all of that imagination that fills in all of those blanks. But then it's a bonus when it's a twine experience where there's some interactivity, and then you have us like, eating a piece of food. That's all the immersion that I need. So I'm not asking for more, but I still think that this could serve as a great
10 minutes
blueprint for a much more elaborate, VR type immersion.
Yeah, I certainly don't object to the possibility of making something more immersive in the VR sense, and have done VR things before. For me, this was definitely partly about the accessibility of it, because being just text, it is obviously way more people can get to it and use it.
10 minutes, we'll be having Sarah Elisa's Move Your Bones in the yoga circle. We've changed it. I know it says garden on the schedule, but we've actually changed it due to some technology restrictions. So yeah, go ahead and check that out. Happening soon.
Cool. Yeah, that was my main thing, was accessibility, and of course, budget and time and such. I'm a one-person operation this summer, and yeah, but I'm always interested in ways to, especially because I got so interested in the prehistoric. I mean, there's so many different eras of prehistory that a lot of people may not have heard of. They mostly just know Jurassic era stuff, and yeah, I got really kind of obsessed with other eras of prehistory. So it'd be really cool to actually have something where you could actually really go and experience some of these things and places. And it also kind of brings to mind things like the work by Shar Davies, where it was virtual reality, but she had a I'm blanking on the Osmos, maybe. You had to wear a kind of vest, and it sensed whether you were breathing in and out, and that moved you through this like beautiful, this is like 80s, 90s, would move you through this like really gorgeous, natural, kind of mystical, natural environment. But there are ways to kind of, a lot of people are working on things where it's helping you practice embodiment, but also doing it with this, you know, these other visual effects and feedback and sound and things like that. So I think all of that is really cool. But for the purposes of getting something out fast and to as many people as possible, you know, people that are low vision or, you know, just any kind of combination of abilities would be able to get to it and distribute it for free as widely as possible. Was more my priority than doing something that was like super high production value. So that's what I went with.
I love Twine Forever +2.
It was my first Twine. Finally, I've curated Twine things a lot, but I hadn't ever built something start to finish. And of course, it's not as interactive as many Twine things would be, but at least I now feel like I have a grasp on Twine quite well. So that's, who knows, we're going to take that next.
Well,
I think sort of like branching out from like strategies for like embodiment, like in this like text-based medium, and I guess I am still thinking about like the nut thing and like how like that one gesture was like, I think, a really powerful immersive tool. And then there's like, I think in the part where we were like scurrying up the tree, I'm sitting on this like rug that's like a little bit like rough, I guess. It's not like a soft shaggy rug, but I like had this urge to like paw at the rug. So yeah, I guess I think in like extensions of this work, I'm really curious about what other like directives for like moving your body are like possible in the story.
Yeah, I thought about that a lot, and I tried to keep it super simple. My original idea had a lot more interactions, but I realized that like it was already asking a lot for many people to get them to do movement while looking at a computer, you know, and also I wanted to be very conscious, although there's nothing required to be very conscious of people with limited movement ability. But yeah, maybe something where it's more sensory, like you mentioned, with textures or smells. I'm really into smell, and I also had to kind of keep it to the things that were most directly related to the vagus nerve, because I could go on and on about many other senses, but they're not as vagus related. So I narrowed it down. Yeah. But yeah, we'll talk, Bonnie.
Cool.
Jonathan, I think you're the only person here I don't know yet. Can you tell me a little bit more about your story?
Yeah, sure. I'm a latecomer to the party. I didn't think I was going to be able to make it at all, and so yeah, I started working in VR. So speaking of Jurassic era, my first job was at Trilobite, working on The Seventh Guest, and so you know, from there there was a little breakaway outfit. We were making our own games. We were making a underwater adventure. But then we had to just be working on other people's games in order to keep that outfit running. So then fast forward to the present, when VR is actually starting to happen. It was, you know, the 20-year lapse. So other things in the meantime. When everybody was isolated, it seemed like I was going to be really busy. But where I had been moving more and more was to site-specific art installations, and I worked for Area Code for a while, so it was, you know, very location-based game development. And so something I've been wanting to do for a while is more fabrication. Like right now I'm working in a metal shop.
Starting Move Your Bones very shortly, a fun somatic practice hosted by Sarah Elise, and that'll be in the yoga circle. Change from the schedule. It will be in the yoga circle, not the garden.
So I've been doing all this stuff in my body. I've been, working with tools, calluses on my hands, very much away from the computer screen the last 3 weeks that I've been working on this other job. And so this was going to be my opportunity to be in front of a screen again. And I'm so pleased to see all of this somatic, embodied focus in so many of these sessions that I didn't even know that that was going to be the case. And so to try.
Yep, we're definitely the crossover crowd here, I think. In fact, maybe we should all go to the next session, or let people go to whatever they're going to go to next, because it sounds like it should be also very interesting. And yeah, I think this is a growing area. I think there are more and more people interested in not like abandoning our bodies when we get on the computers. So, VR is one way to still involve your body, but the other senses and the, ability to actually think about your body and be in the environment seems to be possible in a lot of different forms. So anyway, thanks everybody for being here. And I will look forward to communicating further. I didn't include my email, I forgot, but if you don't have it already, it's moboyd@gmail.com. So feel free to reach out.
Thanks, Heather.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.